He stood center stage with a smile that hid 1,000 tears. He wore glasses thick as the bottom of a soda bottle. His voice touched the sky. It was pure, raw soul. His group, the Spinners, owned the radio. They scored 19 top 10 hits. Only the Jackson 5 stood taller. They played for over 60 years. Yet, the doors of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame remain locked to them. But here's the deal. Forget the gold records. Forget the applause. Look at the scars. Picture a cold, brick building in Cincinnati. The year is 1947. A 6-year-old boy sits alone on a stiff mattress. The room smells of bleach and loneliness. He waits for a visitor who never comes. He is not there because his parents died. He is there because they walked away. He said the pain felt specific. It felt like a knife twisting in his chest. He knew his mother and father walked the streets outside. They just did not walk to him. So he ran. He joined the military at 15. He held a rifle before he held a microphone. He tried to outrun the silence, but gravity pulls hardest on a broken heart. This is the tragic, triumphant story of Philippe Wynne. The story begins in the pews. It starts in Cincinnati, Ohio. The date is April 3rd, 1941. A baby boy named Philippe Walker enters the world. He did not know it yet, but he was born into a rhythm. His family did not just attend church, they lived it. His grandparents breathed the music. They sang with a heavy, holy power. They stomped the floorboards until the wood groaned. Little Philippe sat there. He watched. He listened. The sound of a choir humming low vibrated in his chest. It felt like safety. It felt like home. But silence always follows the song. His father was a man named Degree Walker. Degree was a builder. He worked in construction. He had hands that could lift heavy beams and pour concrete. His mother was named Anna. For a few years, the house was full. Then came 1947. Philippe was only 6 years old. The music in the house stopped. His parents' marriage fell apart like a house with a bad foundation. The glass shattered. The shouting ended. Then came the leaving. His mother, Anna, packed her bags. She did not just move down the street. She ran. She found another man and took the long road north to Detroit. She left the city, she left the state, and she left her children. The court slammed the gavel down. They gave full custody to Degree. Now, picture this man. He is a contractor. His work is not in one place. He has to travel to feed his family. He has to chase the jobs. A man on the road cannot raise a 6-year-old boy, a brother, and 2 sisters. Degree made a choice. It was a choice that would haunt Philippe for the rest of his life. He drove them to a large, cold building. The sign read New Orphanage, Asylum for Colored Children. The doors closed. The lock clicked. Philippe looked around. He saw rows of beds. He saw other children with sad eyes. He spent the next 10 years inside those walls. But here is the deal. Most orphans mourn the dead. Philippe mourned the living. He knew his mother was in Detroit. He knew his father was out there building houses for other families. They were alive. They breathed the same air. They walked under the same sun. They just did not come for him. He said the pain was specific. It felt like a sharp knife stuck in his chest. Every day, he waited. Every night, he stared at the ceiling. He wondered what was wrong with him. He wondered why he was not enough to keep them. The orphanage was strict. It was cold. But it was there that the music came back. Philippe had a gift. When he opened his mouth, the pain went away. He sang in the showers. He sang in the halls. He sang to drown out the loneliness. The other kids stopped to listen. The staff stopped to listen. His voice was high and sweet. It carried a sadness that a child should not know. But singing was not enough. The walls felt too tight. The memories felt too heavy. Gravity pulls hardest on a broken heart. Philippe needed to escape. So he ran. He ran away from the asylum. He ran away from Cincinnati. At just 15 years old, he walked into a recruitment office. He looked the officer in the eye. He lied about his age. He joined the United States Air Force. Imagine a 15-year-old boy in a man's uniform. The boots were heavy. The rifle was cold steel. But for Philippe, The military was freedom. It was a new family. It was a place where orders replaced confusion. He learned to fight. He put on gloves and stepped into the boxing ring. He threw punches at the world that hurt him. He was fast. He was angry. He became the flyweight champion of his accolades. But you cannot punch a memory. At night, in the barracks, the gloves came off. The soldier became the singer. He entertained the troops. He sang songs of love and loss. He sang the blues. One night, a legend walked in. Otis Redding heard the boy sing. Otis Redding, the king of soul. He saw the talent. He saw the fire. He told Philippe he had something special. That moment planted a seed. Philippe realized his voice was a weapon too. It was stronger than his fists. It was louder than a rifle. He left the military. He changed his last name from Walker to Wynne. He wanted a new identity. He wanted to leave the abandoned boy behind. He hit the road. He joined a group called the Pace Setters. He traveled the Chitlin Circuit. These were not glamorous stages. These were smoky bars. The floors were sticky with beer. The air smelled of cigarettes and sweat. The pay was low. The drives were long. But Philippe loved it. The stage was the only place where the knife in his chest stopped twisting. When the spotlight hit his thick glasses, he was not an orphan. He was a star. He moved from group to group. He sang with Bootsy Collins. He learned how to work a crowd. He learned how to preach a song until the audience screamed. He was searching for a home. He was looking for a family that would not leave him. Then he got the call. A group from Detroit needed a lead singer. They were called the Spinners. They were polished. They were professional. But they needed a spark. They needed a soul. Philippe Wynne packed his bags. He headed to the same city his mother had run to years before. He did not know it yet, but he was walking toward his destiny. He was about to touch the sky. But wait, it gets worse. The fame he chased was a double-edged sword. The bright lights would show the world his talent, but they would also reveal his scars. The boy who ran from silence was about to make the whole world listen. But the applause would never be loud enough to fill the empty space in his heart. In that empty space, it was waiting to consume him. The year was 1972. The world was changing. The radio was ready for a new sound, and Philippe Wynne was ready to explode. He joined the Spinners at the perfect moment. The group had struggled for years at Motown. They were good, but they were ignored. They were chauffeurs and chaperones for other stars. They needed a spark. They needed fire. Philippe Wynne was the kerosene. Atlantic Records signed them. They teamed up with a producer named Tom Bell. This was the birth of the Philadelphia soul sound. It was lush. It was smooth. It had horns that punched and strings that floated. But the secret weapon was Philippe. When he stepped up to the microphone, he did not just sing lyrics. He preached. He took the pain from that cold orphanage in Cincinnati and turned it into gold. Listen to the song, How Could I Let You Get Away? The record starts smooth, but by the end, Philippe is begging. He is pleading. He improvises like a jazz musician. He testifies like a preacher on Sunday morning. The public went crazy. The hits started raining down. I'll Be Around climbed the charts. Could It Be I'm Falling in Love took over the airwaves. One-of-a-kind love affair blasted from every car window in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. The Spinners were no longer driving the car for other stars. They were buying the dealership. Picture the transformation. The boy who slept on a hard orphanage bed now slept in 5-star hotels. The boy who wore hand-me-down clothes now wore custom velvet suits. They wore tuxedos in bright blue, deep red, and shimmering gold. They had bow ties and perfectly picked afros. They became royalty in the black community. When the Spinners walked into a room, heads turned. They drove long Cadillacs with chrome that blinded you in the sun. They had money in their pockets and rings on their fingers. Philippe was the center of it all. He was the rubber band man. This song became his anthem. The producer wrote Rubber Band Man specifically for Philippe. It was about a man who moved so much he seemed made of elastic. And on stage, Philippe delivered. He did not stand still behind a microphone stand. He roamed. He danced. He jumped into the crowd. He shook hands while hitting a high note. He sweated through his suits. He gave everything he had. The fans screamed his name. They reached out just to touch the hem of his jacket. For a man who spent his childhood feeling unwanted, this adoration was a drug. He drank it in. He needed it to survive. But here is the most heartbreaking part. One of their biggest hits was a song called Sadie. Sadie is a tribute to a mother. It is a song about a woman who sweeps the floor, washes the clothes, and loves her children unconditionally. It is one of the most touching songs in soul music history. Philippe sang the lead. He poured his heart into it. He sang about a mother's love, so pure it makes you cry. But remember the truth. Philippe did not have a Sadie. His mother left him. His mother ran away to Detroit and never looked back. When Philippe sang Sadie, he was not singing about a memory. He was singing about a fantasy. He was singing to the ghost of the mother he wished he had. The audience did not know the secret tragedy. They just heard the emotion. They felt the tears in his voice. They thought he was honoring his mom. In reality, he was mourning her absence. This specific pain made him great. It gave him an edge that other singers did not have. Their awards piled up. They earned 6 Grammy nominations. They earned a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. They became the second most successful black group of the 70s, right behind the Jackson 5. Philippe Wynne was on top of the world. He had the money. He had the fame. He had the love of millions. But gravity pulls hardest on those who fly high. The applause was loud, but the silence in his head was louder. The group started to feel the tension. Philippe began to feel bigger than the group. He felt he was the star. He felt he was the reason for the success. The other members, Bobby, Purvis, Henry, and Billy, were disciplined. They were a team. They followed the steps. Philippe was wild. He was unpredictable. He improvised on stage for 10 minutes at a time. He stole the spotlight. The friction started to burn. The brotherhood began to crack. Philippe looked in the mirror. He saw a star. But he also saw the scared little boy from the orphanage who just wanted to be in charge of his own life. He made a decision. He decided he did not need the spinners. He decided he could fly alone. But wait, it gets worse. Leaving the group was not just a career move. It was the pulling of a thread that would unravel his entire life. He walked away from the family he built to chase a glory that would slip through his fingers. The lights were about to dim. The crowds were about to fade, and the rubber band man was about to stretch until he snapped. The year was 1977. The dream turned into a nightmare. Philippe Wynne made a choice. He looked at the men who stood beside him for years. He looked at the brothers who helped him rise from the ashes, and he walked away. He left the spinners. He believed the lie that fame tells every star. He believed he was bigger than the group. He thought the fans loved him, not the songs. He thought he could stand alone. He released a solo album. He titled it Starting All Over. The title was hopeful. The reality was brutal. The album hit the shelves, and it stayed there. The radio stations did not play it. The fans did not buy it. The phone that used to ring every 5 minutes went silent. Picture the room. Philippe sits in a chair. The velvet suits hang in the closet. The gold records hang on the wall. But the house is quiet. The applause is gone. He realized too late that the spinners were a machine. They had the writers. They had the producers. They had the protection. Without them, Philippe was just a man with a microphone and a lot of pain. But here's the deal. When the music stops, the memories come back. The old ghost from the Cincinnati orphanage returned. The little boy who waited for his parents woke up inside the grown man. The silence was too loud. He needed to drown it out. Philippe turned to the things that destroy. He drank to numb the loneliness. He used drugs to chase the high he used to get from the stage. The cocaine and the alcohol became his new managers. His body began to pay the price. The rubber band man lost his snap. He gained weight. His face looked puffy. The thick glasses that once looked cool now hid eyes that were red and tired. He tried to keep going. He joined forces with George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic. It was a lifeline. He toured with them. He sang on their hit Knee Deep. But it was different. He was not the star anymore. He was a guest. He was a side act in a circus of funk. He wore crazy costumes. He sang backup for other people. He was searching for a home again, just like he did when he was 6 years old. His heart was heavy, literally and figuratively. The years of stress, the bad food, the smoke, and the drugs weakened the muscle in his chest. But Philippe was a fighter. He survived the orphanage. He survived the streets. He survived the military. He refused to quit. The date was July 13th, 1984. The location was Oakland, California. The club was called Ibis. Philippe Wynne walked onto the stage. He was only 43 years old, but he had lived 100 lives in those 43 years. The club was packed. The air was hot. It smelled of perfume and anticipation. The crowd wanted to see a legend. They wanted to see the man who sang Sadie. They wanted to see the rubber band man. Philippe felt good that night. He wore a sharp suit. He grabbed the microphone. The band kicked in. The rhythm hit his feet. He started to sing, and for a moment, the magic was back. His voice soared. It touched the ceiling. He sweated. He danced. He moved into the crowd. He shook hands. He laughed. He was doing what he was born to do. He was singing to survive. He returned to the stage. He was singing a song about love. He spun around. The crowd cheered. Then he made a joke. He laughed into the microphone, and then he fell. He collapsed to the floor. His body hit the wood with a heavy thud. But wait, it gets worse. The audience did not scream in horror. They did not rush to help. They clapped. They cheered. They whistled. They thought it was part of the show. They thought the rubber band man was doing one of his famous tricks. They thought he was acting out the lyrics. They thought he was going to bounce back up, just like a rubber band. For several long minutes, Philippe Wynne lay dying on the stage floor. The sound of applause washed over him. The people who loved his voice watched him take his last breath, and they thought it was entertainment. The musicians kept playing. The drummer kept the beat. The bass player thumped the strings. Finally, someone realized he was not moving. The music faltered. The cheering stopped. A scream cut through the smoke. Panic took over. They rushed to him. They checked for a pulse. The silence that followed was louder than any ovation he ever received. The paramedics arrived. The sirens wailed outside. The flashing red lights painted the walls of the club. They carried him out on a stretcher, but the boy from the orphanage was already gone. He died of a massive heart attack. His heart, the one that held so much soul and so much sorrow, finally gave out. He died doing the only thing that ever made him feel loved. He died in the spotlight. The news spread fast. The spinners were devastated. The fans were heartbroken. The music world lost a giant. But the tragedy is not just that he died young. The tragedy is that he spent his whole life running. He ran from the orphanage. He ran to the military. He ran to the stage. He ran from his group. He was running to find a place where he belonged. He was running to find a love that would stay. And in the end, he fell alone, surrounded by strangers who thought his death was just a show. Gravity finally won. But the story does not end in the dark. Because even though the man fell, the voice refused to hit the ground. The headlines hit the newsstands the next morning. They were black and white and cold. They read "Former Spinner Dies After Collapsing on Stage." The story sounded like a movie script. A soul singer gives his life to the music. He dies while the crowd cheers. It sounds poetic. It sounds romantic. But here is the cold truth. There was nothing romantic about it. The media painted a picture of a fallen star. They talked about his weight. They talked about the drugs. They whispered about his erratic behavior. They turned a human tragedy into a tabloid scandal. They missed the real story. They did not talk about the 6-year-old boy in the Cincinnati orphanage. They did not talk about the teenager who lied to join the military just to find a family. They did not talk about the man who sang Sadie to a mother who abandoned him. The industry moved on fast. That is the nature of the beast. The record companies repackaged the hits. They released best-of albums to cash in on the grief. The radio stations played Rubber Band Man on repeat for a week. Then, the playlist changed. The world kept spinning. But for the people who knew him, the world stopped. Picture the funeral. The date was July 19, 1984. A crowd gathered in Detroit. The air was thick with humidity and sorrow. The surviving members of the Spinners walked into the church. Bobby, Purvis, Henry, and Billy. They wore suits, but their heads hung low. They carried the casket of the brother who left them. Years of fighting dissolved. The arguments about money and spotlights did not matter anymore. They looked at the box that held the voice of a generation. They realized that the magic they made together would never happen again. The fans lined the streets. They cried. They played the songs from boomboxes on the sidewalk. To the public, Philippe Wynne was a legend. To the industry, he was just another number. And here is where the anger sets in. We have to talk about the disrespect. The Spinners are one of the greatest groups in history. They have 19 top 10 hits. They define the sound of the 70s. Their music is the soundtrack to our cookouts, our weddings, and our quiet Sunday mornings. Yet, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame keeps the door locked. Year after year, the nominations come out. Year after year, the Spinners are left in the cold. Lesser acts get in. Acts with fewer hits and less soul walk across that stage. It is an insult. It is a slap in the face to the legacy of Philippe Wynne. The people who run the museums look at the charts, they look at the sales, but they do not look at the impact. They do not understand what Philippe Wynne meant to the Black community. He was not just a singer, he was a survivor. He represented every underdog who started with nothing. He showed us that a boy with thick glasses and a broken heart could become a king. But fame is a thief. It takes your talent and sells it for $5. It takes your smile and puts it on a poster. But it does not care about your soul. Philippe gave everything to the stage. He gave his energy, he gave his love, he gave his life. And in return, the stage took him. Think about the irony. He spent 43 years looking for love. He wanted the audience to validate him. He wanted the applause to fill the hole his parents left. In his final moment, he got the applause. The crowd cheered as he died. They clapped for his fall. It is a cruel joke. It proves that the public loves the entertainer, but they often ignore the human being. Today, when you hear Could It Be, I'm Falling in Love, the song sounds sweet. The melody makes you sway. But listen closer. Listen to the desperation and the ad-libs. Listen to the way he stretches the notes. That is not just technique. That is a man pleading to be heard. We see the shiny suits. We see the gold records. We see the bright smile, but we miss the scars. Philippe Wynne taught us a hard lesson. He showed us that you can touch the sky and still feel alone. He showed us that the loudest voice in the room often belongs to the person in the most pain. The music industry is a machine. It grinds people down. It chews them up. Philippe Wynne was not just a cog in that machine. He was the oil. He was the fire. He was the soul. And when the fire went out, the world got a little bit colder. So, what did Philippe Wynne leave behind? He left more than a few gold records. He left a blueprint. Every time you hear a singer go off script, that is Philippe. Every time you hear a vocalist preach a sermon in the middle of a love song, that is Philippe. He took the pain of a lonely boy in Cincinnati and turned it into joy for the rest of us. Here is the bottom line. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame might keep their doors locked. They might refuse to engrave his name on the wall. But that does not matter, because statues crumble, buildings fall down. But the music lasts forever. You cannot kill a voice like that. You can hear it at the family reunion. You can hear it at the cookout. You can hear it when you clean the house on a Saturday morning. When Sadie plays, we do not think about the awards he did not win. We think about our own mothers. We think about the love we have and the love we lost. Philippe Wynne did not sing for a trophy. He sang to connect. He sang to prove he existed, and he succeeded. Look at his life one last time. He started with nothing. He had no parents to hold him. He had no home to keep him warm. He faced a world that did not want him. And what did he do? He made the whole world dance. He took his broken pieces and built a legacy that stands tall 40 years after his death. The industry called him a tragedy. We call him a triumph. So, tonight, do something for him. Put on a Spinners record, turn the volume up, close your eyes, listen to the Rubber Band Man, hear the joy in his voice, hear the freedom. Do not remember him on the floor of that club in Oakland. Do not remember the crowd that clapped while he died. Remember him in the spotlight. Remember the man who spun tragedy into gold. Some stories end without closure, but dignity doesn't need applause. What is your favorite memory of Philippe Wynne and the Spinners? Do you remember where you were when you first heard his voice? Let us talk about the music down below.